The case of the stuck key and the coffee catastrophe. Got a ticket last week from a user in the marketing department. Let's call her Brenda. Brenda is, let's say, enthusiastic about her work, which sometimes translates to a certain level of frantic energy when anything goes wrong with her computer. The ticket subject line was in all caps. Keyboard broken, stuck key, can't work, shoo me up. The description read, note, my A key is stuck down. It just keeps typing, Whenever I try to type anything, I can't send emails, I can't type documents, nothing. It's completely broken. I need a new keyboard immediately. My first thought was a physical jam, maybe some debris or a crumb under the keycap, standard stuff. I called Brenda to troubleshoot remotely before heading over. She answered the phone, sounding stressed. Hi Brenda, this is my name from IT. I got your ticket about the keyboard. Can you describe exactly what's happening? It's broken. The A key is stuck. Look, I heard her typing rapidly in the background, and then the distinct sound of a long string of A's appearing on her screen as she narrated her plight. See, it just does that. I can't stop it. Okay, I hear you, I said. Is anything physically pressing down on the A key? Like a pen or maybe something fell on it? No, nothing. I looked. It just started doing it. It must be broken inside. I asked her to try gently wiggling the A keycap to see if it felt loose or if there was any resistance. She did, describing how it felt normal but still produced the endless A's. This was slightly puzzling. A physically stuck key usually feels stuck. Could it be a software issue mimicking a stuck key? A driver problem? Unlikely, but not impossible. Alright Brenda, I said, I'll come down and take a look. In the meantime, try unplugging the keyboard from the computer and plugging it back in. Sometimes that can reset things. I hung up and made my way towards her desk. As I approached, I could hear the faint but persistent sound of the computer beeping, indicating a key was being held down. I reached her desk and saw the source of the problem immediately. Her keyboard was indeed typing A repeatedly, but the A key itself was not physically stuck. It looked perfectly fine. The issue was sitting right next to the keyboard, slightly overlapping the bottom edge. It was her coffee mug. A large ceramic mug filled perhaps a quarter of the way with coffee. It was positioned just so that the rounded bottom edge of the mug was pressing down firmly on the spacebar. The spacebar, when held down in most text input fields, causes the last typed character to repeat rapidly. In this case, the last character she had typed before placing her mug there, or perhaps as she placed it, was A. The mug was holding down the spacebar, causing the A to repeat endlessly. I picked up the coffee mug and moved it a few inches away from the keyboard. The stream of A's on her screen immediately stopped. The computer beeped one last time and fell silent. Brenda, who had been watching me with wide, anxious eyes, stared at the mug, then at the screen, then back at the mug. Oh, was all she said. It was just my mug? Yep, I confirmed, trying not to smirk. The mug was holding down the spacebar, which made the A repeat. I showed her how holding down the spacebar after typing a character replicated the issue. She was incredibly embarrassed. I can't believe I didn't see that. I was so focused on the A key. She apologized for the panic and the urgent ticket. I told her it was fine, reminded her to keep drinks away from her electronics, and closed the ticket as user error, ground foreign object, coffee mug, interfering with keyboard. Sometimes the most alarming issues have the most mundane and slightly hilarious physical causes. The classic case of the foreign object user error. Brenda was so focused on the A key. Hit like and subscribe if you've seen something similar. The network that died for a phone charger. Working at a small branch office means you wear many hats. One day I was the de facto network guy when our main IT team was off site. We had a fairly simple setup, a main switch and a small comms closet, feeding all the desks and a few shared devices. Suddenly, reports started flooding in. The internet is down. I can't access the shared drive. My phone isn't getting Wi-Fi. Within minutes, the entire office was in a state of digital paralysis. I rushed to the comms closet. The main switch, a trusty rack-mounted unit, had a bunch of status lights flashing erratically, or just off. This wasn't a simple outage. It looked like the switch itself was having a major problem, or something was seriously wrong with the power or uplink. I checked the power cable, seemed fine. Checked the patch cables going to the wall, all seated. Checked the fiber uplink to the main data center. The light was off. That fiber connection was our lifeline. Panic started to set in. Was it the fiber line itself? Was it the equipment at the data center end? Was the switch fried? Replacing that switch or getting the fiber repaired would mean hours, maybe days, of downtime for the entire office. Everyone was looking at me, expecting me to perform a miracle. I decided to trace the fiber line back from the switch. It ran up the wall, across the ceiling tiles, and then down another wall towards the front of the office. It wasn't a very long run, but it disappeared behind a partition wall near the reception area. I followed the path, pulling back ceiling tiles where I could. The fiber cable looked intact. I reached the partition wall and saw where the cable went down. It was supposed to terminate in a wall plate with a fiber connector, which then presumably connected to something else important. But when I looked behind the partition, there was no wall plate. The fiber cable was just hanging there, and right next to it, plugged into the same electrical outlet where the fiber termination equipment should have been powered, was a multi-port USB charger, powering 3 mobile phones. Confused, I looked around more carefully. On a small shelf nearby, unplugged and looking forlorn, was a small box with fiber connectors and an AC adapter, the media converter that converted the fiber signal to Ethernet for our switch uplink. Someone had unplugged the critical network equipment to charge their phone and didn't bother plugging it back in. I stared at it for a moment, processing the sheer, unadulterated userness of the situation. An entire office brought to a standstill because someone needed to charge their smartphone. Right there, right then. I unplugged the phone charger and plugged the media converter back in. The little box lit up immediately. I followed the Ethernet cable it was connected to back to the comms closet, plugged it firmly back into the uplink port on the switch. The switch lights went solid, indicating a good connection. Within seconds, the network came back online. Computers reconnected, phones got Wi-Fi, printers appeared. I walked back to the reception area, picked up the phone charger and placed it firmly on the user's desk who had been using it, next to their now fully charged phone. I didn't say a word, just gave them the look. They looked from the charger to the now working network, then back to me, and slowly turned bright red. I went back to my desk and closed the ticket. Network outage resolved. Cause uplink media converter unplugged. I decided not to include the part about the phone charger in the official documentation. Some battles aren't worth fighting and writing, but I'll never forget the day our network died for a few % of battery life. The phantom pop-ups that only appeared during meetings. One of the most frustrating types of tickets is the phantom issue, something the user swears is happening constantly, but which magically disappears the moment IT shows up or remotes in. This one, however, had a bizarrely specific trigger. The user, a manager in sales, let's call him Gary, was convinced his computer was infected. It's pop-ups, he'd tell me over the phone, sounding exasperated. These windows just keep appearing. I close them and they come right back. It's making my computer unusable. I tried remote access multiple times. I ran malware scans, malware bytes, our corporate AV, checked running processes, looked at startup programs, browser extensions, scheduled tasks, nothing. No suspicious pop-up windows appeared during my remote sessions. His machine seemed clean. Gary, I say, I've run scans, checked everything, and I'm not seeing any pop-ups when I'm connected. Are you sure they're still happening? Yes. Absolutely, he'd insist. They just happened 5 minutes ago. It's like they know when you're looking. They only pop up when I'm actually working. We went back and forth like this for several days. The ticket remained open, marked user reports pop-ups unable to replicate. Management was starting to ask why this wasn't resolved. Then Gary called again, sounding even more frustrated. They're happening now. I'm in a video meeting and these pop-ups are everywhere. I can't see my screen. This was new information. They seemed to correlate with video meetings. I asked him to join the meeting and then immediately remoted into his machine while the meeting was in progress. And there they were. Not malicious pop-ups, but small, innocuous windows appearing in the corner of his screen. They were notifications. Specifically, they were notifications from our company's internal communication and collaboration software, the kind that pops up when someone sends you a message, joins a channel you're in, or mentions you. I watched as he got a direct message. A small window popped up in the lower right corner. Then someone else joined a channel. Another small window. Someone had mentioned him in a team chat. Another window. He was getting a constant stream of communication during his meeting, and each one triggered a notification pop-up. I muted the notifications via the software settings. The pop-up stopped immediately. Gary, I said, my voice level, those aren't viruses. They're message notifications from collaboration software name. You were getting a lot of messages during your meeting, and the notifications were popping up. There was a long silence from his end, then a hesitant, "Oh." He had apparently never noticed what the pop-ups were, only that they were appearing and obstructing his view, especially when his screen was full with a video call. He didn't recognize them as benign notifications from software he used daily. I explained how to manage the notification settings if he found them disruptive. He was predictably mortified that he'd escalated this as a major virus issue. The ticket was closed as user reports pop-ups were not resolved. Cause: misidentified software notifications. Another mystery solved, proving that sometimes the most alarming tech problems are just features the user hasn't understood. Phantom pop-ups? More like feature confusion. This manager thought notifications were a virus. What's the strangest virus report you've ever gotten? The printer that only printed upside down and backwards. Printers are the source of endless peculiar problems in tech support. This one was a classic, but with a twist. A user, a senior analyst named Clara, called in with a very specific complaint. The printer downstairs is broken. It's printing everything upside down and backwards. My first reaction was skepticism. Upside down, backwards, that sounded less like a printer malfunction and more like a user setting or a driver issue on her specific machine. I asked her to clarify. Yes, she insisted. I print a document and it comes out with the text reversed, like a mirror image, and the page is flipped. I remoted into Claire's computer. I checked her printer settings for the downstairs printer. Orientation was set to portrait. Page order was correct. No obvious mirror image or flip page options were enabled in the basic settings. I checked the advanced settings, digging through driver options. Nothing jumped out as causing such a bizarre output. I asked her to print a test page from Windows. The Windows test page printed perfectly normally, right side up, correct orientation, text readable. See, I said, okay, the test page printed fine, the printer seems okay. It might be something specific to the document you're trying to print or the application you're printing from. No, she insisted, it's everything. Word documents, emails, PDFs, it's all printing upside down and backwards. Alright, time for a physical inspection. I headed downstairs to the printer. It was a standard network multifunction device, always reliable. I checked the printer's control panel for any weird settings. None. I printed a test page directly from the printer itself. Again, perfect. I called Claire on her mobile while standing next to the printer. Claire, I'm here at the printer. I printed a test page from the machine and it's fine. Can you come down and show me exactly what you're printing and how it's coming out? She came down looking frustrated. She went to her computer, opened a Word document, and clicked print. I watched the printer. It processed the job and fed the paper. The page came out. I looked at the page. The text was absolutely undeniably right side up and facing the correct direction. It was printed perfectly. Clara picked up the page and looked at it. She frowned, then her eyes widened slightly. She flipped the page over in her hand and looked at the other side. It was blank, as expected for a single-sided print job. She then looked at the page, again holding it normally. She turned it upside down, then she turned it right side up again. Finally, she looked at me, a deep blush spreading across her face. Oh, she said very quietly, I was reading it wrong. She had been picking up the printed page and for some inexplicable reason, turning it completely upside down and viewing it from the back side through the paper if it was thin enough, or simply misinterpreting the orientation. She wasn't just looking at it upside down, she was convinced the printer was producing it. Now they say it that way. I stood there for a moment, processing, hours spent troubleshooting drivers, settings, and hardware, all because the user was rotating the output 180 degrees after picking it up. I closed the ticket as resolved user education. I didn't specify what education was provided. Clara avoided eye contact with me for about a week. The printer, of course, continued to print perfectly normally. Hours spent because the user was reading the printout upside down. Peak P. EBKAC right there. Hope you enjoyed these tales. Hit subscribe and have a great day.